Hey guys, I hope you're doing well today. We'll be looking at 1 Corinthians, the first half of chapter 15, and Paul is talking about the resurrection in this chapter. Before we get into that, let's remember to be in prayer for our church family, and today we're praying for Sandra Haynes. And I also want to apologize if I sound a little nasally, if my eyes are a little red. My allergies are just whooping up on me right now. So I'll try not to sniff and snort too much during this. It begins in this chapter to address this topic of the resurrection. It seems like there are some people in this Corinthian church who are having trouble accepting the teaching of the resurrection. Not the resurrection of Christ. They're okay with that. Was resurrected after his death. But they're thinking about the resurrection of us, of them, of those who have passed away, who believed in Christ. I don't think they would have reason to doubt that. Maybe it's something in their past, some teaching they had before, something they're having trouble letting go of, whatever the case may be. But there is different views held on whether or not we are resurrected after we die. Do we come back to live with Christ? Obviously, we know these kinds of beliefs and disagreements can cause serious trouble in the church. And Paul, for one, obviously, to be very important. And he wants to clarify for them and, of course, correct those who are saying there is no resurrection. He is the resurrection. He said that when he raised Lazarus from the dead, and the Jews understood that they would be resurrected, and is where that resurrection comes from. There is no resurrection from the dead apart from Jesus Christ. He's our resurrection. Paul wanted the Corinthian people to. One of the things I appreciated about this chapter is the way he opens up his argument. As he begins to address the problem they're having, he really talks about what the resurrection means for him personally. He talks about himself, how he came to trust in the gospel, and how it was through Christ appearing to him. How Christ came and was seen by all these different people, and by Peter, and by all these other brothers and Christians and followers. And he says, but by me too, last of all. He talks about how he's the least of the apostles, and he's really talking about the hope and the grace that was brought to him in that moment, and what it means to him. What that really means is, Christ was resurrected, and it was proof of who he was, who he said he was. He was God, but it was also proof that Christ had had victory over death. Christ had paid the price, the wages of sin, come back to life. He had victory over death. And that meant for Paul that he also had victory over death, God's grace through him. And it completely ignited his passion, obviously, for God. And he worked for God. And he gave everything he had for God. Into the second part of this chapter, and really starts to talk to them logically about their belief and why it doesn't make sense. And he says, if you are denying the resurrection you're denying also the resurrection of Christ. Christ, he says, is the first fruits of life, of resurrection. He is the beginning of the harvest, and we are going to come after that. Believing in vain. We're still in our sin. The victory over death has not come. That is not the truth. He wants them to have a complete understanding of who died for us because he loved us. He raised from the dead for us. He came to give us victory over and for ourselves, over the death we had earned for ourselves. So he thinks it's extremely important because we are going to be resurrected, and we're going to glorify God for all of eternity. We have something, a whole eternity to look forward to. And that was one for us in Christ. I pray that this passage is a blessing to you today. If God revealed something specific to you today, I'd ask for you to leave that on Facebook, leave it on YouTube for us in a message. God bless you guys. Let's minister to one another.